What if I told you that some of the things you do every day are quietly destroying your brain? It's a hard question, but it's one we all need to face. Your brain is the command center of your life. It controls your thoughts, your emotions, your decisions, your memories, and even your sense of purpose. And yet, for most people, it is the most neglected organ. We spend time building our bodies, working on our careers, even caring for our appearance. But how much time do we spend caring for the very organ that makes all of that possible? One of the most damaging habits is neglecting sleep. We treat sleep like it's optional, but the brain treats it like fuel. Without proper rest, memory falters, focus weakens, and long-term health suffers. Another habit is living in constant stress. The brain is not built to endure never-ending floods of stress hormones, and over time, stress actually shrinks critical parts of the brain that control memory and learning. Then comes diet. Sugar and processed foods may satisfy cravings, but they inflame the brain, impairing function and increasing the risk of decline. Exercise is another key. Without it, blood flow slows, oxygen decreases, and the brain begins to starve. Just as muscles weaken without movement, the brain weakens without activity. And perhaps one of the most subtle but powerful habits is negative thinking. Your thoughts literally shape the wiring of your brain. Rehearsing fear, anger, and hopelessness strengthens those patterns, making them the default. Add substances like alcohol or drugs, and the damage accelerates, poisoning brain cells and aging the brain prematurely. The truth is, your brain thrives on care and consistency. It needs sleep, healthy food, oxygen from movement, and positivity from the thoughts you choose. It needs connection with others, stimulation from learning, and protection from toxins. The good news is that you are not stuck with the brain you have. You can change it. You can stop the damage, rebuild what has been weakened, and begin healing today with simple, consistent choices. The question you must ask yourself now is this: if your brain is your greatest asset, why would you continue living with habits that destroy it? Change begins the moment you decide to stop treating your brain casually and start treating it as the priceless treasure it is. Because when your brain works right, you work right. And when you work right, every part of your life improves. Poor sleep is one of the most underestimated threats to brain health. Many people treat sleep as optional, cutting back hours to work late, scroll through their phones, or binge on entertainment, not realizing that the brain is paying the price. Sleep is not wasted time, it is repair time. During deep sleep, the brain processes memories, clears out toxins, and restores balance to chemicals that control mood and focus. When you consistently deprive yourself of rest, you rob the brain of these essential functions. The effects show up quickly. Memory starts to slip, making it harder to recall details or learn new information. Focus becomes scattered, and simple tasks take longer than they should. Over time, poor sleep doesn't just leave you tired, it increases the risk of serious issues like cognitive decline and even dementia. The brain ages faster when it doesn't have the chance to rest and repair. Good sleep is as critical as nutrition and exercise for a healthy brain. Protecting your sleep means setting boundaries, creating routines, and valuing it as a top priority. When sleep improves, memory strengthens, focus sharpens, and the brain regains the energy it needs to perform at its highest potential. Chronic stress is one of the most destructive forces against the brain, yet many people live with it daily as if it were normal. Stress is meant to be temporary, a short burst of energy to help you deal with danger or pressure. But when stress becomes constant, the brain is flooded with hormones like cortisol that were never meant to stay elevated for long periods of time. This chemical overload begins to damage the very areas of the brain responsible for memory, learning, and emotional regulation. One of the most vulnerable regions is the hippocampus, the part of the brain that helps you store and retrieve memories. Under chronic stress, it can actually shrink, making it harder to concentrate, recall information, or stay mentally sharp. The prefrontal cortex, which manages decision making and focus, also weakens, leaving you more impulsive and less able to think clearly. Meanwhile, the amygdala, the brain's fear center, becomes overactive, keeping you stuck in anxiety and worry. The cycle is cruel. Stress makes the brain weaker, and a weaker brain makes it harder to handle stress. Breaking free requires intentional habits like relaxation, deep breathing, exercise, and positive thought patterns. Reducing stress isn't a luxury, it's a necessity for protecting the brain's structure and strength. Excessive sugar and junk food are not just harmful to the waistline, they are destructive to the brain. Every time you consume refined sugar or heavily processed foods, your blood sugar spikes rapidly, and your brain gets hit with a surge of energy it cannot use effectively. What follows is a crash that leaves you tired, irritable, and craving more, creating a cycle that damages focus, mood, and memory. Over time, this constant roller coaster begins to wear down the brain's ability to regulate itself. High sugar intake also fuels inflammation, which silently harms brain cells and interferes with the connections between them. This weakens learning and memory while increasing the risk of long-term decline, including Alzheimer's and other cognitive disorders. Junk food loaded with artificial additives, unhealthy fats, and salt compounds the damage, starving the brain of essential nutrients it needs to function at its best. What makes this worse is that the brain becomes addicted to these foods, much like drugs, because they overstimulate the reward system. This leaves you hooked on the very things harming you. Choosing whole, nutrient-rich foods instead of sugar and junk is not just about physical health. It is one of the most powerful ways to protect and preserve your brain. Lack of physical exercise does far more than weaken muscles. It starves the brain of the very fuel it needs to thrive. When the body moves, the heart pumps stronger, increasing blood flow throughout the system. That circulation delivers oxygen and nutrients to the brain, keeping it sharp, energized, and capable of forming new connections. But when physical activity is neglected, blood flow slows, oxygen supply drops, and the brain begins to function at a lower capacity. This decline shows up in many ways. Concentration weakens, problem solving becomes harder, and memory isn't as reliable. Over time, a sedentary lifestyle increases the risk of serious conditions like stroke, dementia, and depression, all tied to poor circulation. The brain is an energy-hungry organ, and without the stimulation of movement, it simply doesn't get enough fuel to perform at its best. Exercise also stimulates the release of chemicals like endorphins and brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which help grow new brain cells and protect existing ones. Without activity, this growth slows and the brain misses opportunities to repair and strengthen itself. Even small amounts of regular movement, walking, stretching, or light cardio can dramatically improve brain oxygenation. Movement is not optional. It is a lifeline for brain health. Negative thinking patterns are more than just bad habits. They physically reshape the brain. Every thought you repeat strengthens neural pathways, and over time, these pathways become the default routes your brain takes. When you constantly rehearse fear, anger, worry, or hopelessness, your brain wires itself to expect and create more of the same. This is why negative thinking doesn't just stay in your mind. It changes your mood, your behavior, and even your health. Fear and anxiety are amplified when the amygdala, the brain's emotional alarm system, becomes overactive from repeated negative focus. Depression deepens when the prefrontal cortex, which helps regulate emotions, weakens under the constant weight of dark thoughts. The result is a brain that feels trapped, replaying the same destructive stories, and leaving little room for optimism, creativity, or joy. The good news is that the brain is also capable of rewiring itself toward positivity. Just as negative thinking strengthens fear, positive and hopeful thoughts strengthen resilience and peace. Practices like gratitude, mindfulness, and reframing challenges create new pathways that counteract the negative ones. Training your thoughts is like training a muscle. The more you choose empowering patterns, the stronger your brain becomes against fear and despair. Alcohol and drug overuse quietly poison the brain, damaging its cells and speeding up the aging process. While many people see drinking or using substances as a way to relax, escape, or have fun, the brain experiences it very differently. Alcohol is a toxin, and when it enters the bloodstream, it directly interferes with communication between neurons. Over time, this disrupts memory, focus, and decision-making. Drugs, whether recreational or misused prescription medications, often overstimulate or suppress critical brain pathways, leaving long-term scars on how the brain functions. Excessive use also shrinks key areas of the brain. Studies show that alcohol can reduce the size of the hippocampus, the part responsible for memory, and weaken the prefrontal cortex, which controls judgment and self-control. This shrinkage makes it harder to think clearly, resist impulses, and maintain emotional stability. In short, the very parts of the brain that protect your future are the ones being destroyed. On top of that, Alcohol and drugs accelerate brain aging by fueling oxidative stress and inflammation. They rob the brain of nutrients and impair its natural ability to repair itself. Cutting back or avoiding these substances altogether isn't just a healthy choice, it's a direct investment in preserving your brain's vitality, clarity, and longevity. Social isolation slowly deprives the brain of the stimulation and connection it needs to stay sharp and healthy. Human beings are wired for interaction. Our brains thrive when we share ideas, emotions, and experiences with others. When isolation sets in, whether through loneliness, withdrawal, or lack of meaningful relationships, the brain begins to lose some of its vitality. Without regular conversation and engagement, neural pathways weaken, much like unused muscles that gradually atrophy. Isolation also fuels stress and depression. The absence of supportive connections raises levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, while lowering feel-good chemicals like serotonin and dopamine. This chemical imbalance can leave you feeling anxious, down, or detached, making it even harder to reach out for the connection you need. Over time, chronic loneliness has been shown to increase the risk of cognitive decline and even dementia, underscoring just how essential social bonds are for brain health. The brain needs more than puzzles and reading, it needs people. Simple acts like talking with a friend, joining a group, or engaging in meaningful community not only boost mood but also provide the mental exercise the brain craves. Social connection is not a luxury, it is a vital nutrient for a thriving, resilient brain. Protecting the brain is not only about avoiding harmful habits, it's about building proactive daily practices that strengthen and nourish it. Many people think brain health simply means not drinking too much, not using drugs, or trying to get some sleep. While avoiding harm is important, it's only half the story. The other half is creating habits that actively support the brain's growth, resilience, and longevity. Just like muscles grow stronger when exercised, the brain flourishes when it's consistently challenged and cared for. Daily habits such as eating nutrient-dense foods, moving your body, practicing mindfulness, and learning new skills all feed the brain. Foods rich in omega-3s, antioxidants, and vitamins provide the raw materials neurons need to repair and communicate. Exercise improves blood flow and oxygen, keeping brain cells active and alert. Mindfulness or meditation reduces stress hormones, protecting memory centers from damage. Even something as simple as reading, solving puzzles, or learning a new hobby builds new neural pathways and strengthens cognitive flexibility. When you combine these habits, you're not just preventing decline, you're actively upgrading your brain. Protecting it becomes a lifestyle, not a reaction. The stronger your daily habits, the more powerful, adaptable, and youthful your brain remains over time.